Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to today's webinar, brought to you by Shared Services Link and sponsored by ADRA. Today, we will be looking at how Lloyds Register digitized their financial close. My name is Sarah Fury, and I am the Head of Research at Shared Services Link, and I'm pleased to be joined by our guest speakers today, Paul Bryanhill, who is the Shared Services Centre Manager EMEA at Lloyds Register, and Deborah Chandler, the Account Director at ADRA. Let's take a quick look at the agenda for today. I'm going to quickly touch on the context for the webinar. Then Paul from Lloyds Register will be giving some insight into his story on how they've digitized their financial close. Deborah from ADRA will be talking about some of the insights into the balancer solution, and then we'll be closing with some of the benefits that we've been able to see from real R2R automation. So just to touch briefly on the context and why we're here today. We find that in shared services that support large organizations, that complex organizational structures often mean that reporting and visibility into the balance sheet can be a real challenge. However, shared services have a real opportunity here to improve this and to improve the visibility into the record-to-report process and deliver better value service to the business. Today, we'll be looking at how Lloyds Register made some dramatic improvements in streamlining and digitizing their monthly financial close process. So with that, I would now like to hand over to you to Paul Bryanhill.
Thank you very much, Sarah, and welcome to everyone today. As Sarah said, we're going to be looking at the story from Lloyds Register point of view of how we improved our record-to-report processes. And I'd like to start by looking at the actual aims that we had around this and take you through the aims for the session today. So first of all, we'd like to talk about the tips and things we learned about the engagement with our stakeholders during this implementation of the new technology and the ways that we went around implementing that new technology. Then we'll look at what were, from our point of view, the critical success factors in providing a seamless implementation of our balance sheet reconciliation technology. Then how did Lloyds Register actually enable ourselves to redeploy the people that we got doing very mundane manual tasks into tasks that were going to add value to the business? And in doing so, how we actually gave more visibility to the business of what was actually going on and how it could control its business, and also how we increased the value proposition of our shared service centre operation. So if we start by looking at the agenda we're going to go through to meet those aims. So Lloyds Register has a number of values as an organisation. So first of all, I'll take you through those and how our organisation is established. Then I will look at our shared service centre operation and the scope of that. We'll then look at the challenges we have as a shared service centre operation in our record-to-report processes. We'll then be looking at the record-to-report solution, and you'll hear both from myself and Deborah from ADRA during that part of the session. And then I'll come back at the end of the session to talk about how practically we saw the values added to our organisation. So let me look about LR and what we're all about as an organisation. So as an organisation, we are here to make the world a safer place to be in. And all our operations and everything we do are aimed at making it a safer environment for us all to work in and to actively live in the world. Who are we as an organisation? So we're an independent global engineering and technical business services organisation. So what we do is we go and sell people who can provide safety information and safety values to organisations. Although our operating business is a commercial operating business that's here to make a profit, we are owned by the LR Foundation, which is a registered charity in the UK, and that charity is dedicated to research and education in the science and engineering sectors. So unlike some organisations, you will find that we have slightly longer to do some of the things because we're not governed by quarterly reviews, shareholders, etc. But we still do have to provide dividends. We still do have to provide value to our foundation. What do we deliver to our clients? So we provide three basic things here. The first is we provide them with an operating allowance to enable them to actually do business. The second element is delivering them assurance that they are safe to operate in whatever sector that may be. And we operate in 3 core sectors. So we operate in marine and offshore, we operate in energy and management systems. And the third element of our offering is to improve their business performance. So by looking at their safety and the way they operate, we can help them to improve their business performance. How do we do this? Well, this is done by 4 key areas. So first is that we are very much customer focused. So how can we help and support our clients, enable them to achieve their goals and their objectives? To be technology enabled and an agile organization, so we're quick to adapt and be able to support our clients. We believe we have exceptional people who truly live the values of our organization. And one of the things we found from talking to our clients is they really do rate the people that they actually work with in our organization. And the fourth element, which is really a new element to us here at Lloyds Register, is really influencing the world we're in. So we now have a much clearer focus on talking to governments, talking to major organizations about how, as a world, we need to develop to become a safer environment for us all to be in. We do this through 3 core values. So they are: we care, we share our expertise, and we do the right thing. Lloyds Register has been around for a long time, 250 years, but our shared service centre has actually been only in operation in the EMEA region for 3 years. And I'm now going to talk us through the actual areas we cover in our shared service centre operation. So we cover our record to report processes, our order to cash process, purchase to pay, master data, so that's the maintenance of all data records for employees, for customers and suppliers. We also have HR within our shared service centre, and we have facilities management. Our current staffing levels are within the EMEA Shared Service Centre, which is based in the UK. We have 140 people. In our Americas Shared Service Centre, which is based in Houston, we have 35 people. And our newest centre that we're just opening in Asia, based in Singapore, we have 40 people. Within our record to report teams, globally, we have 21 people out of those headcount we talked about earlier are working on record to report. So you see, it's quite a small team, really. And sizing of organisation, we're a 1.1 billion revenue organisation, and we operate in 87 countries. We have 9,000 staff, and we operate as a matrix structure. So we have business streams, so the 3 business streams I've mentioned already, and we also have a regional structure. Our structure as a shared service centre is we are a global shared service centre, our key centre being the EMEA centre, but then we have the regional hubs in America and Asia. And we operate on a JDE platform as one single instance of an ERP system. So as I mentioned earlier on, we established our first shared service centre in the EMEA region in mid-2013. We've brought into that shared service centre 49 countries with over 100 legal entities. And as I mentioned earlier, we've got pretty limited resources working on the record to report. We actually only have 14 people within our region in EMEA looking after 100 legal entities, and you can imagine the number of balance sheet reconciliations that they needed to do around that. Added to that, we had the challenge of deadlines. So we had deadlines of we needed to achieve our reconciliations by workday 6 after a close of our movements on workday 6 as well. So we were trying to do both on the same day. We also had a real problem in being able to give people access and visibility to the data we were reconciling, because whilst we're based in the UK, we're an independent site from any of our operations, so everybody was remote from us, and giving that visibility across those 49 countries to our finance people, both in the streams and also in the regional teams, proved a real challenge for us. Added to that, our ERP platform is quite old. is very manual. We have no workflow. We have no monitoring tools. So there was a real challenge for me to be able to confirm to the business that we'd actually done all the reconciliations and that there was any evidence of control around what we were doing. So all in all, it was a real challenge for us to be able to prove and provide a good service on a timely basis to the business that they could feel comfortable with and they could feel that they could rely on. So as we embarked on this process, we needed to ensure that we had the engagement of our stakeholders. And I can't stress how much to us that was one of the key things to get that engagement of stakeholders. And the first thing to do that, you need to look at who the key stakeholders are for you in your organisation. And this will depend organisation to organisation how this works and how the framework and mechanism of control works. But we needed to get the engagement of our senior managers, so our C-suite. So we engaged with our CEO, our CFO, our business stream heads. We engaged with the business at various levels as well, so that we got their total commitment, their engagement, their understanding. We engaged with our corporate finance team, and we also engaged with the members of the Shared Service Centre team, because I think that can be something we sometimes forget about, that the team who are actually going to use this, implement this, work with it on a day-to-day basis, they need to be engaged, as well as the customer, in this case, the business that you're going to provide the support to. So we needed to make sure that they really understood what we were trying to do, what the benefits were, and we needed to understand what they wanted out of this engagement as well, and take them on that journey so that we really had a clear journey that we were going on together. So we looked at how we could do that journey. So we looked at the record to report solutions that were available and out there in the marketplace. So having scoped out what we needed, we looked at the options available to us. And in looking at the options and solutions available, we looked at some key factors. First was the scalability, because although we were introducing this initially in our EMEA region, we wanted to have the scalability to do this globally. We wanted to have visibility for everybody to use this application no matter where they were, whether they were based in our core offices, whether they were based in our satellite offices, whether they were remotely based. So we wanted them to have a visibility wherever, whenever. We wanted them to have a control framework that enabled us to be clearly and simply able to explain to people where we were in the process, what had been done, what hadn't been done on reconciliations. And we wanted to have ease of use of the system. So we didn't want to have an application and a solution that needed loads of training. We wanted a solution that was similar to the likes of Amazon, where, you know, how many of us have been trained on Amazon, yet we all use tools like Amazon on a daily basis. So we wanted to have that same type of feel that you could go on and use it without extensive training. You may need a little bit of guidance, but only a little bit of guidance. But the other key factor, because there are a number of solutions out there in the marketplace, is to have the right partner who was actually going to provide us with a solution, but also work with us and come with us on the journey and work with us in understanding what our challenges were, how we could deliver those, and help us deliver those. So that was key to us, that we picked the right solution provider. And with that, I'd like to hand over to Deborah, who will talk you through some of the solution, and then I'll come back later to talk about our journey and what happened in the journey.
Great. Thank you very much, Paul. So let me just take this opportunity to sort of give you some insight into the RZR R2R solution. So taking that a couple of steps back, actually, to a few years ago, Gartner actually published a report that many of you may have read or heard of, which certainly coined the phrase enhanced financial control and automation. Now, the whole R2R process bridges the gap for you between your ERP system and your corporate performance management systems. Okay. Now, normally this gap is actually filled with spreadsheets, Word documents, emails, status meetings. So essentially, it's a manual process and reporting element that is happening at the moment. So we have looked at this, and we've looked at financial process management and looked at encompassing all of these processes into our solution and automating those processes for you. So let's take a quick look at 3 of our solutions and understand how they will help you automate these processes that we're seeing on the screen at the moment. Okay, so firstly, automating volume transactional-based work that isn't being looked after in your ERP with our solution accounts. But how do we do that? Well, we standardize import formats, automatically matching based on controlled business rules. We highlight exceptions in there with a controlled resolution process, as well as reporting back either to your ERP with variance write-offs or other journals, or into Balancer. Okay, so to the period end balance sheet reconciliation workflow. Now, Balancer is a solution that Lloyds Register are using, and Balancer focuses on the period end reconciliation. And I'll actually give you a short overview of that solution a bit later on. But our last element that serves the R2R process management is Task Manager. Now, Task Manager actually provides a standardized workflow for all those recurring processes, and that could be weekly payroll process or the month-end close process. All the preparations and approvals are gathered here in a centralized manner for easy and repeatable workflow. So that's given you just a little brief synopsis of our solutions and how we are very focused on the R2R process and automating that process. And with that, I'd like to hand you back to Paul to take a look at the implementation of this process at Lloyds Register.
Thank you very much for that, Deborah. So as Deborah said, we'll now look at the actual implementation process. So the first thing we did in our implementation was actually scope out the requirements in detail, because you need to know when you're looking at providers exactly what you are expecting out of a solution. So we've found in the past, and we've learned from this on other projects, if you don't scope out things in detail right at the front, you can end up with a solution that doesn't really match your requirements. So it's very important to get that scoping done at the beginning and involve all your stakeholders in that scoping process. Then we went through a selection process. So we put out to tender our scoping requirements. We also have scoping around health and safety, around environmental. So all of our suppliers have to meet those criteria as well. And as I mentioned before, it was about how they would work with us in partnership as well. So we were looking at that as part of our selection process. And, you know, very much we wanted somebody, and in ADRA we found it, somebody who was going to partner with us throughout the journey that we were on. And that's not only just through the process of actually implementing and the first few weeks, but it's ongoing actual use of the system and continuing to be that partner afterwards. So we then had the implementation, and ADRA very much, as I mentioned, supported us through that. The actual setting up of the 100 entities that we got within the EMEA region only took us 3 days. So it's a very simple, very easy process to actually set up, needed minimal time, minimal effort from us, and ADRA were here throughout that to support us on that journey, and also to support us taking the stakeholders through that journey as well, of the selection, the implementation, and the early use. They were also here to give the training, and as I mentioned earlier, that was quite minimal, but they were here to do that, and they've been here to help us review and develop that service as we've gone live. And, you know, we're still in quite early days. We've been operating for about 3 months now in the EMEA region, but we're now implementing it in our Asia as we set up the Asia Shared Service Centre as well. So, you know, they've been there to support us and help us through that. And I'm going to hand back to Deborah now, who will take us through some of the screens, some of how the system works, so you can get a feel for how the system is very intuitive and easy to use. And then I will come back towards the end of the session to talk about the benefits that we've actually achieved here at Lloyds Register.
Thank you, Paul. So we're just going to take a deeper technical dive actually into the software. So hopefully what you're going to see here is that basically the system was very, very intuitive and easy and quick and agile to set up. ADRA is a balancer solution. It's a secure SaaS web-based application. Okay, that's very important. It can be accessed from any web browser. So in this image here that you see on the screen, I'm actually using Google Chrome. However, IE, Firefox, Opera, and importantly for you, if you're on the move, and mobile, Safari for mobile use is fully supported. So your tablet, your smartphone, etc. So ADRA's Balancer solution is also based on the latest technology, and it has and continues to be developed using best practice agile methodology. So each user's got their own dedicated logon, which serves as an ID for them for distributing work, enabling management, oversight, and assigning those administrative responsibilities. Let's take a look at the home page. What do you see when you actually come into the system as a user? The home page is actually the end user's landing page. So it shows them a grid of the reconciliations that are assigned to them. So really their tasks for the day. They're assigned those tasks for completion, and this grid can be sorted to allow prioritization with key fields such as GL balances, displayed as reporting currency as well as local entity, and risk ratings. So this grid it's very easy to use, so much so that actually your auditors can utilize the software without any training. There were two graphical representations of status of all the accounts for which they have responsibility, and as well as an indication of completeness in the finalized, non-finalized pie. So there are other dashboards available in the application for management oversight. How easy is it to use? Well, let's take a look at the status and responsibility overview. As you can see on this screen here, as indicated by the menu on the left of the screen, this accounts and status overview is, in our opinion, actually a dynamic dashboard. You can filter, group, sort functionality, and you've got the ability as well to add, remove columns of information, and each user, which is really important, can have their own preferred view. So really, you're actually making it very customizable for that individual preparer as they're doing their and performing their recs. So in this image here, I've actually grouped by filter and status, and it gives me a true overview of the finalized status of those recs that are prepared by users and which user has assigned responsibility. It gives me an oversight into the reconciliations that are handled by the system automatically. So that's, again, a very time-saving device. So the business rules over this certification can vary between automatic prep and or automatic approval, or indeed both. So these automations often serve as an automated control and are usually based on zero balance accounts, etc., accounts that have not changed period to period. So with auto carry forward, all of the substantiation and the details and supporting documentation, i.e. you don't have to do any more photocopying for the current month binder, that's all carried forward. And the subledger balance automatic comparison to the GL. Okay, so these business rules, as I said, of the automation are fully configurable, ensuring you have complete control over the automation, which in our experience actually usually ranges from 15 to 25% of the balance sheet. So from this page, a user can drill down into the standardized template for information on the preparation of the reconciliation. Let's take a quick look at the standardized template, just to give you an insight into that. What we have on the screen is ADRA's standard reconciliation template for currency-based accounts. Second template's available for all accounts that don't need to address a transaction transparency. Okay. At the top, there's information on the account and more detailed information, one click away under the account details. So really easy to navigate to. That includes the account purpose and procedures, allowing individual documentation of each reconciliation as a control procedure. Okay, so a full audit trail is also available through one click into the activity log. So essentially, you're getting everything on one page. So, three main areas to the template. Firstly, the Open Items grid, and this is where the user adds items either automatically from their ERP, manually one by one, or a transaction import from Excel to substantiate the balance imported from your GL. Documents can be added here at line level. In this example, it's a property account, so the property deeds have been added. And the next two areas that we can see further down the screen, if we click to that, they are for comments and reconciliation for wide supporting documentation. So comments are for users who've got access to the reconciliation template, whether as part of the workflow or as managerial team responsibility. This enables true visibility, and this is a really important point. It's about collaboration at a reconciliation level. So you're no longer sending emails out, everything, all of the comments are collaborative and they're against that reconciliation. So finally, the last element is documentation, and you can actually whitelist your documentation as well to ensure only specific users have access. That may be pertinent for payroll, confidential information, etc. So let's hand over to Paul to look at some of the tangible benefits of automating your R2R process.
Thank you very much for that, Deborah. So we're now going to look at the technology and how that's added value into Lloyds Register. A lot of those things that Deborah just showed certainly resonate with myself, and we've certainly seen the benefit of those here at Lloyds Register. The first thing we've been able to do is give multi-site access to our people, because we work across various sites. I mean, we have over 60 operational sites within the EMEA region. We then, as Deborah mentioned, it gives us the ability to give people access out on sites as well, on client sites, because some of our people who need to see this data aren't based at our offices, so it gives us the ability to do that. So it's really given us an ability to give people access to this data securely wherever they are. So that has been one of the key value adds for us. It's then provided us with a capability to actually work on value add activities. So we've taken away those creation of spreadsheets, the photocopying of information, carrying documents around, emailing things backwards and forwards, all the things that add no value, frustrate people, people lose things, documents just don't end up where you mean them to be, etc. So it really has enabled us to move people away from doing those non-value added things to actually being able to do reconciliations and analysis work on that. That has then meant that we have been also able to give an online approval mechanism to our people out in the business. So we've been able to say, you can have access to review this data and approve this data online, and we can clearly see who's prepared the data, who's reviewed the data, and where the data is in the process. So that has really helped us get a better control and visibility. So as senior management now, we can see exactly where each of the reconciliations is in the process without having the question asked and then having to spend hours working out where we are in a non-value added process. As I mentioned earlier, we're passing this information securely across our network and outside our core network as well now. So that gives us improved security. It improves our cycle times, because previously to having Balancer, we weren't even completing all our reconciliations by Workday 10. Now we are completing all our reconciliations by Workday 6. So that is a real benefit. We're also completing some of our reconciliations, so our key reconciliations, on Workday 4 as we're actually closing. So people have availability to a real-time access of information. So as they're closing, they can see where the reconciliation is, they can see which ones have been worked on and are available to review. So it really has enhanced the way we work with the business. It's made the roles much more interesting for the people who are doing it, and it has given the business a confidence in us that they really didn't have before. So with that, I'd like to look at the benefits and value proposition that Balancer and ADRA have helped us to deliver to the organisation. Firstly is around our staff and being able to redeploy them onto value-added activity. So we've moved into the aspect of really interpreting and analysing our balance sheet, but also freeing up time within our accounting team to actually do proper business partnering and taking that on, because we've built a confidence up with the shareholders through the visibility, through the timeliness, through the accuracy and completeness of data, that they feel confident that they want to come and ask us to take on additional work. So this week alone, we've been asked by two of the functions to take on additional FP&A analysis on the back of this. So in real terms, we are taking on additional work. We're enhancing the roles for the individual in the shared service centre, but also enabling us to deliver a better quality service to the business, more timely, more efficiently, and more cost effective. We're also able to reduce the process around our audit cycle. So we've managed to take many of the manual processes out of our audit cycle and use the Balancer tool to give access to our auditors so they can go in and review that data and have the substantiating data behind the reconciliation easily available. So it's easy to use. As Deborah mentioned, we don't need to train the auditors. They've been able to pick it up and use it straight away. The other thing, and I've called it hidden benefits on this slide, is because we've built up in a relatively short time, so we're only talking 3 months here, a confidence in the business that not only are they giving us this business partnering, the FP&A activity, but they're also asking us and inviting us to help them with the challenges and problems they have out in their business. So, for example, we've been invited out to one of our regional offices where they're changing their process, nothing to do with the actual processes we have within the shared service centre, but asked us to help them deliver a change in process that actually enables them to work more efficiently. And that's because they have confidence in us and we've got the abilities to do it, and now we've freed up the time to be able to do it. So that really means we're adding value to the organisation, we've got a more engaged team, and we've got more engaged stakeholders.
That's great. Thank you very much, Paul, for some really high quality insight into your story. Thank you to Deborah for the deep dive into the tool. Some really great content there. And also a final thank you to our attendees on this webinar. So thank you very much for your time today, and goodbye.